Perfect. Welcome, everyone, to the November edition of the What's the 411, our monthly series that brings you 4 integration strategies, 1 educational program, and 1 trending topic. We will be able to communicate. You'll be able to hear us, your speakers, but in order to communicate with us, make sure that you use that chat window. In just a minute here, I'm going to share my desktop with you, and your screen might flash for just a second. I also have my colleague, Ginny Washburn, on the line. Can you say hi, Ginny?
Hi, Ginny.
Okay. Thank you. And Ginny's going to be moderating that chat window because it's likely that I won't be able to see it, but it should be appearing for you on the lower right-hand corner. So for those of you who just joined us, welcome, and be sure to let us know where you're from and what you teach in the chat window. So let's get started. So the integration strategies are brought to you by our SOS weekly blog series, what we call our Spotlight on Strategies. It's a weekly digital media integration challenge, and I'm going to show you where to find it so that you can have access to all of the PDFs and resources. So to access these, make sure you visit denblogs.com, and Jenny's going to paste that in the chat window for you. And when you get there, be sure to click that SOS in the upper right-hand side there. When you get to that page, you'll see a series of blog posts, and each blog post contains a PDF that can be printed and put in the mailboxes or emails of your teachers that you work with. Each SOS brings you a background, an example, a challenge, and a bonus, and all the posts normally go up on Monday. So the ones that we're going to share tonight, one of them or 2 of them have been posted, but not all of them yet, so they're coming throughout the month. So let's get started. The first one is a really interesting take on how to introduce a topic of study. It's called the 214. So in order to strengthen our students' digital literacy, getting them to really think critically, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more when we get into the Common Core, about what the ideas are, what pictures, images, or text are telling us. So for example, can you name this event? Here are 4 images that represent this event, 2 facts, and 1 clue. So can anybody paste in that chat window really quickly what event you think this is? And Jenny, I'll rely on you. It's silent.
Surrender at Yorktown was one of the answers.
So all of it put together, though, actually it's the study of the American Revolution. So it's just a really great way, instead of telling students what we're going to learn about during our topic of study, kind of giving them clues and facts and images to try to get them to really talk. And as we're doing that, as I'm listening to my students guess, I'm really doing a pre-assessment. So that's the 214. The second strategy tonight is Where in the World, and it integrates our Discovery Education Atlas. And I really like our atlas because it really allows a just-in-time teaching moment. Something happens in the world and students are actually wondering, where is that? For example, when the tsunamis hit, where is Japan, and why is it Japan more probable tsunami more probable in Japan than maybe in other countries? So we can actually point that out on a map. In order to get to our Discovery Atlas, make sure on the upper toolbar that you click Teacher Center. I used to call this TC, Teacher Center, but also Treasure Chest. This has a lot of great tools and resources in there for you, like our Discovery Interactive map at the very bottom. And when you get to that map, you actually have a drop-down that appears in the upper left-hand corner, and it allows you to select any country. And then you can zoom in and get videos about the culture, government, history, and natural world. So it's also a great way if you have students that have traveled abroad or are visiting or have immigrated over to really highlight their countries. And in the SOS strategy for this month, there's a really great example about how to prepare students for the Olympics, for the next set of Summer Olympics.
Hey, Janita, sorry to interrupt. There was a great question on if they're adding content regularly to the interactive atlas. Do you know the answer to that?
I believe they are, because they did add floods and other information as soon as that tsunami hit. So it might not be as updated as some of the other areas of our site, but it does get updated.
Thanks.
Yeah. And if there is a very big kind of current event that hits, like the tsunami or the election or a major earthquake, they normally put up a theme page within 24 to 48 hours on Discover Education. I know that they already have information in there about the gentleman that jumped out of the balloon from way high up over New Mexico. Can't even think straight right now. If you're looking for other ways to get your students connected with things that are going on around the world, this month in Den Connects, that's www.denconnects.com, we're featuring holidays around the world, and our week is off just a little bit here. We're going to push this back one more week, but you can see each one has like a little mini lesson and opportunity to connect with other educators and students, as well as a Web 2.0 tool of the month. So you might want to check out denconnects.com. Another strategy is called Half the Story. So what I'd like you to do, kids are always inundated with all kinds of different information, and so when we're looking at images, we want to take a look for just a moment in the chat window. Let me know what you think this is about. What do you think this picture is telling the story of? If I had to say, caption this, what would you say?
Tony said immigrants.
Immigrants,
okay. Carolyn said a farmer heads home after a long day. Karen said farming.
Farming? Perfect. So if I actually zoom out on that picture, you'll realize that this is actually a group of farmers doing a lesson on the new Turkish alphabet. So it's really, I always get the same answers no matter where I go. Amazing how just getting part of a picture, we're able to make quite a few assumptions on what's going on, and then when we kind of take a step back and kind of look at what's going on overall, it kind of changes perception. Just a reminder, when you do go in and you look at our images, you can download them in small, medium, and large. What I'm doing right now, those large can be blown up poster size, so what I'm doing right now is I'm zooming in on certain sections of those large images. What if you walked in my class and this image was showing, and I asked you, what do you think we're studying today? What would you say? What do you think we're studying today?
Sharks, ocean life, whales, fish, marine mammals.
I actually had somebody once, Jenny, say an airplane, and I thought for a moment, really? But then when I look at it, it actually does kind of look like the shell of an airplane. If I zoomed in on another part of the picture, you might have a definite idea, or you might think about, you might have an idea of what we're teaching. But perhaps I use this as a springboard to tell my students, actually, this is a picture of a shark, but we're actually studying estimation and multiplication. And if we kind of square off a section of the shark's mouth and we count how many rows by how many teeth, we can actually estimate how many teeth a shark has in general. So kind of using images to begin that. The last strategy is a favorite of mine. When we're watching videos or even listening to audio clips, there's a lot of information in there that's stellar, and there's some information that students don't really need to know. And it's our job to help them learn how to focus on the most important components of a video. So I actually did this activity with a group of students, and what we did is we started, before we watched the video, with a vocabulary activity, and I asked them to do a pair share on the important academic language from what I felt was most important that would lead into the other lesson. And so debris, intercept, violent, and deploy were among those. And then I said, as we watch this video, I'd just like you to clap. So it was a video on, it was Team Dominator from the Storm Chasers. And every time they heard this word, they were supposed to, any of these words, just clap. And the first time a word came up, one student kind of clapped really quietly, and I paused and I gave her positive reinforcement, asked her to let me know what word she heard and how she heard it described. And then by the time the second word popped up, everybody was clapping. It sounded like thunderous applause in there. So it's just one great way to really help students focus in. So that's the vocabulary scavenger hunt. And that wraps up our integration. So I just want to remind you one more time, how do you find those? You go to www.denblogs.com and click the SOS tab. And there you'll actually find PDF versions and a longer description of all the things that we just shared. And if you have any questions about that SOS series, feel free to put those right in the chat window, and Ginny will be moderating that.
Yep, and I just want to do a quick audio check because I noticed one person mentioned that they can't hear audio, so I just want to make sure and check in really quick if you all can use the chat feature to make sure you can hear us okay. Okay, looks like we're good to go. Okay.
Yeah, perfect. So the program that I'd like to talk to you about tonight is one of my favorites, and it's called Siemens STEM Academy. And you can visit that site at SiemensSTEMacademy.com, SiemensSTEMacademy.com. When you arrive on this homepage, you'll find a variety of different resources and links, and so I'd like to point out a few of them to you today. The first one is the webinar tab. Siemens does monthly webinars for teachers and for students, and this is what I love most about what they're doing here at Siemens. You'll notice that on December 4th at 1 p.m. Eastern. So anytime you see our webinar calendar say something's happening at 1 p.m. Eastern, just note that that is because it is designed for your students to attend. So we're actually doing a live event, live stream with the Smithsonian National Zoo all about amphibians. If you'd like to see some of the other webinars that they've done and have been archived, you can just, on the right-hand side there, access all the archive webinars. The other tab that I want to point out is resources, and though they're not running a promotion now, if you do have science resources and when you want to upload them, oftentimes throughout the year they'll run special promotions where they'll send you some type of gift for uploading one of your lesson plans. So make sure you check out these great STEM resources. The last thing I want to point out about this program is if you are a high school teacher and you teach any of the STEM subjects, they do have a great all access, all include, everything's paid for summer academy called the STEM Institute, Siemens STEM Institute. It's held at our headquarters in Silver Spring, Maryland, and it's all expenses paid, including your travel. So you want to check this out. The application's actually open in December, so if you teach high school or you know somebody that does teach those, please, please encourage them to participate. It really is a transformative experience. And those are like basically the main parts of the Siemens STEM Academy. It's a great program. They do a lot of great things for educators, so I encourage you to check them out. And now, any questions, again, feel free to put them in the chat window about the Siemens STEM Academy. Or if you've attended one of our Siemens STEM Academies, please let us know in the chat window. Let everybody know what it was like. But I know a lot of you are here for our trendy topic this month because it is definitely a hot topic in education today. I travel, Ginny and I get the privilege of traveling all across the nation to the major urban districts, and we hear it wherever we go. And there is a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty, so I hope that the next 20 or 30 minutes that we're able to really clarify some things for you. I really felt this image really best represents this Common Core transition because you know what? It is a long road. There are going to be bends and turns, and there are going to be some uphills, but I think it is definitely worth a road traveling. So I want you to take a moment to read this quote, and in the chat window, let me know what part of this quote stands out the most. And as you're thinking about it, I'll read it out loud. I begin with the premise. All children come to school expecting to learn, hoping to succeed. As educators, it's up to us to provide the instructional support they need to fulfill their expectations and goals and to never give up on them. So go ahead and share in that chat window. I'll give you just a few seconds. Or if you are in a group, talk amongst yourselves. And Ginny, as those come in, if you could share them, that would be fabulous.
Happy to. A lot of participants are saying never give up stands out. Also interactive. All children want to learn, want to be successful, wanting to succeed.
Yeah. I think this is such a powerful quote, and I wish we could each hang it up in our classroom somewhere to remind ourselves that children do come expecting to learn and hoping to succeed, and to remind ourselves never to give up on them because it's so easy. I know that educators across the nation today are inundated with so many things and so many even issues and needs amongst the children that it's so easy to kind of give up. But they come, those little smiling faces. And this is my shameless plug right here. This is my son, David. This was him on his first day of school, and I just love this picture because he is so excited. Like, I could hardly get him to hold still long enough. He was starting a new school, and he just was so excited because he knew that he was going to go have fun and learn new things. And I have to ask, what happens to this child? I mean, how many of your kids come to school with this, like, energy that they can hardly contain, this complete glee for education. And I'm worried about what happens between him now and the 6th grade or the 5th grade or the 3rd grade or high school. I have a feeling that something's happening along the way. But kids come, like the quote said, ready to invest. And the way, kids don't have money, but they do have something to offer, and that's their time and energy. And they expect and deserve a return on their investment. So we have to ask, what are we doing to really invest their money, their time, and their energy effectively? How many of you have ever been on a cruise? I've been on a couple now, and it's definitely a large investment. And when I invest in a cruise, or when you invest in a cruise, there's definitely some expectations as you climb on board. So if you were to invest in a cruise, what would you expect in return? So go ahead and share in the chat window or amongst yourselves in the room. What kinds of things would you expect for your investment in your money?
Great food, fun, entertainment.
Perfect.
Nonstop entertainment.
Nonstop, yes, a wild party. We do expect to be treated with respect, to be entertained, to be educated, and offered a variety of adventures, not just one type of adventure, a lot of different outings and excursions. And, of course, there are the buffets with the wide range of delectable treats. So I would like you for the next hour or so just to really think about your classroom being a cruise ship and what kind of offerings and opportunities are you offering? Are you making your educational space an edutaining environment for all your kids? And really, in order to do that, we have to ask, who are you on your first day of school? So I'm going to have you watch a short video, and Ginny's going to put that into the chat window. As you watch this video, I want you to think which animal best represents you on the first week of school. On the first week of school, or maybe even where you're at right now. And as the movie finishes, if you could just put that in the chat window, and that will be how we know that you are done watching the clip. So I'm going to sit quietly for just a few minutes now. So who are you? Video should be ending soon. Another 30 seconds. And be sure to share in the chat window when you're done watching the video which animal best represents you.
We have a couple leaping lizards and a tired or fatigued frog or tired toad I like that one as well.
Perfect.
And I know a few of you were mentioning in the chat window you were having problems playing the video. So Janita, if you want to just give a 20-second overview of what the video is, just in case it wasn't able to play for anyone.
Sure. So definitely save that link because it's definitely one that you'll want to watch later. It's just a really cute video where a lot of different animals pop on screen, and it describes, are you a motionless monkey quietly waiting for the next thing to pass? Are you a leaping lizard ready to try on whatever comes your way? Are you a fatigued frog barely hanging on? Are you petrified praying mantis just scared to try anything new? Are you just a cranky Komodo just tired of it all? I really think it's important that we kind of address this animal in the room, but most importantly that we think about ways, though, that we empower and re-energize each other to become leaping lizards, because I know that with all the different initiatives and things that are passing in schools today, it can become tiresome. And I love how the DEN community does that so well by being connected with each other and really encouraging each other. And how do we really encourage and hold each other accountable for providing the best return on investment for our students? Because if we're cranky Komodos, that we're not modeling the best behavior for our students. So by now, no doubt, everybody's heard about Common Core. They've heard something. So in the chat window, if you could please let me know, what is it that you've heard about what the Common Core is? What is Common Core? Jenny, feel free to share. There's no right or wrong answer here. But what is it that you've heard that the Common Core is? Maybe everybody's a petrified praying mantis, too afraid to actually type what it is.
Oh, sorry. I think I might have been on mute and talking. Could you hear what I was saying?
No, I didn't hear anything.
Sorry. So national standards, rigorous standards aligned between the states, a new set of standards to teach by, Common Core is focused on nationwide standards. Let's see.
So
getting everyone on the same page.
Perfect. I did a lot of research on a lot of different websites, and I'm going to share some of my favorite websites with you at the very end. But here basically are the big ideas. It's a state-led initiative. So the governors, everybody got together and said, we need to make change. It defines knowledge and skills students should have in their K-12 education in order to be college and career ready. And I really want us to think about that as we go through, and I talk about the shifts later, that it really is about preparing them to be ready for the college and the workplace. And it's built upon the strengths of the current standards, that there are some great things that are already in place. We're going to build about that. And it's also internationally benchmarked to make our kids competitive in the 21st century. I want to take a look for just a moment at what the Common Core itself, this is just a screenshot straight from the Common Core, and here's where I get really excited, but hardly contain myself. One of the big components about what students who are college and career ready in reading, writing, speaking, listening, language need to know is that they use technology and digital media strategically and capably. So no longer is it okay for educators to say, oh, I used a video, I used media, I got that checkbox off. It's really about the strategic implementation and integration of digital media. That's why I love the SOS strategies, because I think media in the past has become kind of a passive learning experience, so it's really time to re-engage our students. Let's take a look at another, we're going to zoom in on the section that says they demonstrate independence, because this is what our kids need to be able to do in order to be college and career ready. So if you could just take a look at that really quickly, I'll read it out loud, but as I read it or as you read it, type in the chat window, what's a statement from here that kind of stands out? Students can, without significant scaffolding, comprehend and evaluate complex text across a range of types and disciplines. They can construct effective arguments and convey intricate or multifaceted information. Likewise, students are able to independently to discern a speaker's key points, request clarification, and ask relevant questions. They build on others' ideas, articulate their own ideas, and confirm they have been understood. Without prompting, they demonstrate command of standard English and acquire a a wide-ranging vocabulary. More broadly, they become self-directed learners, effectively seeking out and using resources to assist them, including teachers, peers, print, and digital reference materials. So feel free to share, and I read that aloud for the people who might have a small computer screen. So what are some of the statements that are standing out, Jenny?
Self-directed, build on others' ideas, relevant questions, independently discern, self-directed, relevant questions, articulate their own idea, wide-ranging vocabulary, lots of.
And I imagine that this statement probably excites and creates fear amongst educators, right? This is why we came to education, right? To make students independent, to help create this sense of independence. But at the same time, with all the other things that are coming down at us, it's hard to kind of get from where we're at to where we really want them to be. But I have some good news. Discovery Education is helping you with that. We have a wide range of resources that can help you get there. We're going to talk about them tonight. So I want everybody to take a deep breath wherever you're at. Deep inhale, long exhale, and know that we're in this together and that we want to be right alongside of you in this transition to help assist you and your students. For just a moment, I want you, this is all about moving from what's taught to what students need to be able to do. And so we want our 21st century students to be able to work in teams, adapt to change, engage in learning. So there are 9 things around the circle. And I want, your administrators aren't here right now. It's just you and me, and I'm not going to publish the chat window. You and me and several other people around the nation. But for a moment, I want you to really reflect honestly about where you feel your students are proficient. Not, oh, we worked in teams once, but like of these 9 things, give me a fraction. How many do you think your students are really proficient in? So is it 3 out of 9, 4 out of 9, 5 out of 9, and let's be honest.
Two out of 9, 1 out of 9, 3, 2, 4, 1, 4, 3.
Perfect. So we definitely have some room to grow, and we need to really think about how we can improve these percentages, because this is really what our students need to be able to do. So it's something really great to kind of keep in the back of your mind. I know Jenny and I did this activity in Albuquerque this last summer, and people actually asked for this to be a poster that they could hang in their classroom. I think as educators, sometimes we get really good at pointing out the negative and the nitty-gritty. And what I love about the Common Core standards is that they acknowledge the fact that the Common Core doesn't have everything, that there are limitations. And I really like this. So I want to take a look at this right now. I am so glad that the Common Core does not tell teachers how we should teach, what could or should be taught. It gives us guidelines and it gives us flexibility so that we can bring in content that's most entertaining and engaging for our students. It doesn't let us know work intended for the advancement beyond the standards or before leaving high school. It doesn't give us all the exact answers for intervention methods and for ELL students or social, emotional, and physical development. And I like that because you know what? I think what the Common Core is doing is acknowledging that we came to the field because we have a gift for teaching, and we don't want to be told everything. We don't mind guidelines and some structure, but we want to have some flexibility to do what we came to teaching for. So no doubt these are just little, we've heard it in the lounges, the teachers' lounges across the nation. What are you overhearing in the staff lounge about Common Core? And again, this is just me and you and several other people across the nation, but let's be honest, like what are teachers really saying about the Common Core? What are you saying about the Common Core?
The content is harder. It's great, but how does it relate to the test? They're nervous. California has additional standards in addition to the Common Core. How to do assessments. Finally, it's time we got it all together.
I
Panic about change. We need resources. Feeling overwhelmed. It's hard.
Perfect. So I'm going to address a lot of those concerns in another slide, but here are some things that I've heard from across from the nation. Some people feel like we're already doing this. Other people are like, okay, how is this going to impact my evaluations? And, you know, like we're just going to wait it out till the whole thing blows over. And I love this quote. Actually, this is a quote that I have on a sign in my house that says, life is not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain, and the winds of change are coming. We have to learn to embrace it, to own it, and not run, dodge, swerve, or avoid it. Because it is coming, and I think there are some really great things. In fact, storms bring rainbows. That's the only way we get a rainbow, really, is through a little bit of rain. And so I'd like to talk about what I see at the rainbow's end. The new less is more. I think what the Common Core does, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, is it really narrows down the focus. So we're going not as wide but much deeper, which I like because I think we're always just trying to get through so much stuff that it really is going to cause us to slow down and really take a look at what's most important. You're right, we don't have time for one more thing. I'm going to address this in just a second, but I think what the Common Core does, again, is kind of reduce those number of standards. I'm not sure if you're all familiar with the movie where the little guy gets so distracted, he's like, squirrel, squirrel, all over the place, right? So I think in education, there are lots of squirrels, lots of programs, lots of initiatives, and I love that somebody said it's about time we get it all together. That's right, because we can't handle another thing running by that's going to distract us from what's most important. I really like somebody said, Jenny, that they felt like they need more resources, and the best part of Common Core is it is really going to unite the educational community across the nation, because right now it's really hard to be on the same page when in California I teach one thing, and in Illinois at the same grade level at the same time they might be teaching something else. So it is really kind of giving us this national community, not just a local or state or regional community, so I'm really excited. And I think the most important thing that I am so happy about with the Common Core is it's going to take us back to the reason why we came into education. It's time to bring the art and craft and teaching back. We don't need textbooks that say, you know, today we're going to teach and literally telling you what to say word by word. It's going to give you some creativity and space, and I think that's going to be hard and scary, especially for teachers who've been in for a while and haven't had that opportunity to use their creativity and their gifts. So I think these are all really great reasons to embrace the Common Core and to take a moment to really look at it and see what that means. So for just a moment in the chat window, can you please define the word cover? If I said, what does cover mean, what would you say? And there's no right or wrong answer. Cover. I'm sure you guys didn't think you were going to have to work this much in a webinar.
To layer over, to skim over information, to shield. Something goes on top of something else. Teach and learn it together, to go over.
Perfect. So I love it, to shield, to layer over, to be on, to skim the surface. So dictionary.com defines it as to serve as a covering, to place something on top or over, to hide or view from screen. So I have to ask you then, as educators, how many times have we ever said, oh my gosh, I've got to cover this. I've got to cover these standards. Because what you're saying is that you're hiding, you're actually viewing from the screen. You're just skimming, you're just putting on top of, you're not really digging deep. So I think we really have to think about even the way that we describe our own job. Marzano and Kendall did this fascinating study where they tracked what it would take for a kid to actually graduate in a certain state from school. There are 255 standards, 3,968 benchmarks, and if you only spent 30 minutes per benchmark to master, now we all know it just takes 30 minutes, right, for mastery. It probably takes a lot longer than that, but let's just say 30 minutes. It would actually take an additional 15,000 hours of school. That's equivalent to 9 more years. So the reality is we're not going to cover it all, and no wonder why we feel like we're running out of time, because we are. This is a quote by our founder, John Hendricks of Discovery Communications. Says, Discovery is more than the name of our company, it's our very calling. I think this is, it should say, education, because it's really our job to help kids discover, to encourage discovery. And I think right now, the way that, in the past our current standards have been aligned, it really only hits on the tip of the iceberg. So I'm really excited about kind of digging deeper. But I also know that that happens step by step, right? And that we're all wearing different types of shoes. We're all going in our own direction, but to acknowledge that we all need to make a step, make a shift of direction and change, and that's the only way it's going to happen. So we've got to set the fear aside and just think about how it can happen step by step. So let's take a look for just a moment at what the big ideas. So Common Core has these things they call instructional shifts, and I'm not sure if you've heard of them or not. There are 6 for language arts and literacy and 6 for math. And basically, you can pretty much consider this as the big idea. So what I'd like to do is kind of walk you through some of those big ideas behind each of them and give you some strategies. I think sometimes in education we make things much more complex than they actually need to be, and I found this really great website, and you can find a tiny URL there. I think Jimmy can post it in there. They have some great handouts for parents on the Common Core, and I think maybe that's where we should start looking at what the Common Core means and then go into and scaffold our own way into understanding what the Common Core is. So shift 1 is all about balancing informational and literary text, and that's really what the educational side says. The parent handout obviously reads that students must read more nonfiction than fiction, and here's where this really breaks down. Basically, we're about preparing students for success again in the workplace and in college, and the reality is they're going to read more informational text than narrative text. So this shift is really aimed at K-5, and it's just reminding the K-5 teachers that it's really important. We shouldn't just start those nonfiction texts in like 3rd or 4th grade, that we really have to start it much younger. And when was it really the last time any of us had to read a narrative for our professional growth or workplace? So that's the first shift. So read as much nonfiction as fiction. And I think that's exciting for educators because it's going to shake things up a little. The second shift is really aimed more for grades 6 through 12, and it's knowledge within the disciplines. So it's no longer okay to be like, I teach reading or I teach. It's really about teaching literacy, right? So not just reading, quote unquote, reading teachers will be teaching those literary elements. It will be all subject areas that we're really focused on getting smart through reading in a variety of areas. So not just in language arts do we just read, the great novels, but we're also reading a variety of other texts. And that we're finding books that explain. We're discussing those nonfiction texts. Shift 3 is about the staircase to complexity. And I love this because, I think as adults we do this a lot. I think it's really hard for kids to understand this, and I think in the past we've just really forced them to get through stuff, and in the process of getting through, we haven't really provided a lot of time for them to reread or even know how to reread because we just need to get on to the next story. I think this is really about us modeling how to really increase knowledge and increase level of the types of texts that are encouraged our kids are reading. And bring in stuff that they enjoy reading. I love one of the notes that I had down here was about it's okay to tolerate some frustration. Oh, there it is, handle frustration. So it's good to be a little bit frustrated with text because it gets us to think differently. We shouldn't always be that comfortable. If we're that comfortable, we're not growing and we're not stretching. So just remembering to be a little bit more patient and allowing a little bit more time and space in our curriculum to have students read those more complex texts. And here's an example that comes to us from Discovery Education, and this is a science lesson on ELA and science about respiration and circulation. The existing science standard is on the left-hand side, and the Common Core standard is on the right-hand side. And this is what I love about the Common Core, because in language arts it's telling me, read to determine the central idea of the text and how it's conveyed through particular details. It doesn't tell me what I have to use to teach them that, so I can actually pull a great reading passage from Discovery Education. So this is one on respiration and circulation, and you might see some of this. I think this is aimed at about a 5th grade level. to be honest, when I taught in my school district here in California, this would have been a really challenging reading passage for my students. But it's likely that I would have just put it down in front of them and said, okay, just, read it and let me know if you have questions on words or however I might have done it. But you have such great tools and resources available to you now. So what I would do now is I would take this text right here from this reading passage and put it into something we call Wordle. Wordle.net creates these word clouds. So the larger a word appears, the more times it appeared in the text. So in order for my kids to read this passage and to have some type of understanding, they must first understand what capillaries are, what blood and system and oxygen and breathe and cells. If they don't understand that, chances are they're not going to understand the bulk of the text. So I'm trying to scaffold that vocabulary for them to make sure that I front load them with the necessary academic language. Once we do that, I might have them, and the great thing about these, we can also print these out, but I would have each student read each section of the reading passage, and then under each section put a star next to the most important phrase or sentence. And then have students work in groups to discuss. Each of them look at each other like, what part did you star? What part did you feel is most important, and not just say, well, I thought, the elephant's trunk and the dolphin's blowholes are part of the respiratory system is the most important, but you have to state why. So it's really getting kids to engage in these really dynamic conversations. Why do you think that is the most important part of the text? So that's just one idea. So again, in groups of 4, share what you starred as a group. You have to agree on the most important idea of each section. And most importantly, cite the evidence to be able to defend your selection. So just one way to kind of bring that in. Shift 4 is all about text-based answers. And again, it kind of builds on what I was just saying to engage your students in very rigorous conversation. Some might call them arguments, but you're really just getting them to really stand on something, to form judgments and to determine what they feel is most important. Because what we're trying to do is develop habits for making arguments, not just stating this is how I feel, but really being able to back it through rich discussion. Again, it's not about just getting through a text. It's about taking the time to have the kids really argue out what's the most important thing about this text and why. So it's not enough to just put reading passages in front of kids anymore, but to engage them in those deeper conversations. So here's an example of how we can do this with digital media. This is a lesson on determining the author's point of view or purpose. And it's not saying that we're going to get rid of the traditional ways, but it's saying, some students need help. And everybody knows that a picture is worth, what, 1,000 words, right? If we're having a hard time getting our kids to talk, then we need to use creative ways to start that process, to model it for them. So for just a moment, what I'd like you to do is think about how winter is portrayed in this picture and cite evidence for that. So in the chat window, how would you say that the picture on the left portrays winter and why? Give you a second to respond.
Dark and gloomy, cold, bare trees, dark, dreary, cold, dismal, clouds.
Dismal. And why would you say it's dismal? So the whole point behind the Common Core is saying, okay, why would you say it's dismal? What makes this picture, and anybody can respond, what makes this picture seem dismal?
The colors, the dark clouds.
Perfect. How about everybody respond on the right-hand side? How does this author of this photo, this photographer, view winter?
Christmas time, fun, bright, crisp, cold, cheery, sparkling, fresh.
Perfect. And why would you say Christmas time? Anybody in the picture? And why would you say Christmas time, and why would you say cheerful?
Brighter colors. It looks like a Christmas card. The brightness.
Perfect. So what I hope I'm able to model for you right now is it's not just okay for students to say, oh, it looks cheery, or oh, it looks like Christmas. Now we have to state evidence for why. So we're trying to pull it out of them to be able to make some more stronger, substantial arguments. What would you say that those two pictures have in common? What would you say those two pictures have in common?
Snow, winter, cold.
And again, if I were in the classroom, I'd say, well, how do you know it's cold? Like, what makes you think that it's cold? And maybe it's because the fireplace is going in the background, and we know that we use the fireplace for warmth. So it's just really engaging in deeper conversation. We can use some of our traditional ways, right? I think there's such a large chasm between instructional practice and digital media. Like, I know what to do with a Venn diagram if I'm lecturing or if I'm giving a student text, but how do I use a Venn diagram when I'm using digital media? So this is just one way to do that. And then providing them as an exit ticket, now that we've had this great discussion in class and all students can be able to respond, now maybe they can respond individually to see exactly where they're at. So shift 5 is writing from sources. So being able to really write less narrative and more of the informational text. And this is not to say that we need to get rid of the narrative. It's to say, how can we write it differently? So instead of my kids coming back from summer vacation or winter vacation and saying, you know, here's my story about what I did on my winter vacation, I might say, you know, write persuasive argument as to why your vacation was the best and cite evidence for that so that the kids are kind of viewing it in a different way. And again, it's really getting them to develop their own voice so that they can argue a point with evidence. And this is a great way also to look at it. Again, because Common Core doesn't tell me what I have to teach, or they tell me what I have to teach but not how I have to teach it. The standard here is about describing a relationship between a series of historical events or scientific ideas or steps in a technical procedure. So if I know that my students are really, you know, potato chips are a big thing to them, there is actually a great video on discovery education. Oops. I'm going to pause that because that's probably going to make your screen slow down. But there's this really great video on how potato chips are made, and it goes through the whole sequencing event. And I would actually pause it about every 3 to 5 minutes and have kids actually add to a graphic organizer the different parts. So in each section, what are like the main important facts of how potato chips are made. Please note that I would never have them write while they're watching that clip. Because as they're watching their clip, if I have them drop their eyes for even a second, their eyes are dropping, they're losing content. So after they're done watching the clip, I pause, they write, and then I might, as soon as they're all done with all 3 boxes, have them turn to a neighbor and ask them, what facts did you include? And then they have to decide which are the most important steps in the sequence of making potato chips so that they can come up with their own versions. And the last shift is about, for English Language Arts, is about the academic vocabulary. This is about kind of building their basis. And kind of, I love, somebody described it as using high-octane words. And I just want to emphasize, it's not really about how many syllables. It's really about getting strategic about how many different ways they can use that word. So finding words that kind of cross those platforms and are useful for them in multiple ways. I'm running kind of out of time here. But for I just want you to make sure that you take a look at the design behind the English Language Arts Common Core. They feature around 4 main topic areas, and each of those are repeated throughout all of the different grades, which I really like. And they also do a really great vertical look at what a student needs to know in the 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade, because I think this is really important that we understand what kids are learning ahead of us and then and behind us as well. So for just a moment, if you can, in the chat window, how do these shifts change what we are currently doing in the classroom? And what role do you feel digital media plays? So how do these shifts change what we are currently doing in the classroom? What does it? And what role does digital media play in it?
learning is more integrated, higher level thinking, teaching more learning skills, putting the students in charge of their learning. I love that one. More inquiry is required.
Yeah, I love that too. Can you repeat that one more? Putting kids in charge of their learning. It's really like we have to stop giving them the answers. I think we give them the answers and we ask them to think about it. It's going backwards. It's like, think about it and give me the answer. So I think that's really important. I can't wait to see the chat window later. I want to quickly go through some of the math one. I know we're getting short on time here, but there are 6 shifts. They're a little bit different from math, and the first one is on focus. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. That's the new less, but the new more is less. So really prioritizing what's going on in the classroom. The second one is coherence, which means we're going to build year after year. That it's important that we do that we take it in incremental steps and that we understand, again, what's going on the grade level before and what we need to prepare for them. Now, what happens, though, if a student comes to you and they aren't prepared, they don't have those resources? How are we going to go back and teach that? Discovery Education has something we call math overviews and explanations, which are essentially step-by-step instructions on solving some of those problems. I really encourage everybody online right now and listening, when you go into Discovery Education, you need to drill down by media type and go beyond video, because there are so many great, rich resources, and we really do need to offer a variety of resources to our students. So make sure you check out the math overviews and the explanations. Shift 3 is all about fluency. Kids need to be able to access, they need to be fast. I mean, back in the day, I remember doing the drills and knowing those core foundational elements in math so that we can move forward. And Discovery Education does offer a variety of different math games, and this is a call out even to the high school teachers, because you can search by games and then drill down by grade level, because there are games for every grade level and every subject area. So I really encourage you to check out that Math Dojo Rocks for those people who are teaching multiplication or division. It's almost like online flashcards, so make sure that you check out that. So games are really a fun way, and remember, in Discovery Education now, you can assign these to students so they can actually access it at home. Shift 4 is about having a very deep understanding. We know if they really understand it, they should be able to really talk about it and explain it and prove that they know how it works and why. I really encourage everybody to check out Flipping the Classroom. I know that this is, we've done webinars on it. Maybe we'll do another one in the past or in the future. If you go to tinyurl.com/lodge sample, I want everybody to go there, not right now, but later, and click Watch the Lecture, because this is Lodge basically doing like a mini lesson, and I would encourage you to have your students create their own mini lessons, or even doing it on paper and pencil and then just holding a flip camera above their paper, because we know if they could teach it, we know that they understand it. Shift 5 is application. This is probably my favorite one, right? And I think everybody should be excited about this. It's like, let's teach math in the real world. Let's let kids know that math does exist, that they need to pay attention. The best example I have of this, I'm in Southern California, call out to all the SoCal people on the line right now, but the Lakers are a real big part of our culture here, and I knew that during the Laker season, during the playoffs, my students would be watching the Laker game, whether I gave them a math worksheet or not. Their priority was going to be the Laker game. So one day I was teaching fractions and percentages and kind of graphing, and I said, you know what, tonight for homework I want you to watch at least 1/4 of the Laker game. And my kids thought I was off my rocker because, you know, that's not what they were used to. But I said, you know, when you watch the Laker game, I want you to pick your 2 favorite players, and then I want you to do shots attempted versus shots made, and then just do the little tally graph, and then bring that into school tomorrow, the next day. What I found is that kids actually did multiple quarters because they were watching the game anyway, or multiple players. And the next day we had this really great data that meant something to them to actually transform to fractions and percentages and decimals and pie graphs. And we could have discussions about why at that time nobody wanted Shaq and, you know, to shoot free throws, or they would want to foul him so he would shoot free throws because his percentages weren't that good. And then I just reminded kids, you know all those percentages and stuff that you were seeing fly on the board and you were hearing those announcers? Those guys are actually getting paid to do that in their life. So that's actually a job that you could have. The last one is about dual intensity, and it kind of blends everything together, right? I have to have strong math facts and be able to do them fast so that I can apply them in real-world situations, so that It just kind of blends together. And that's dual intensity. So think fast and solve problems. When we look at the math design, it's much different than the language arts. So I just want to take a moment for just a second to look at it. They have the domain, the cluster, the standard. So it definitely looks different. But what I really love about the math is that it starts off with a math overview in the very beginning of each one, and then it drills down. So you don't see that kind of crosswalk across the grade levels, but you do see a really deep dive into what each of those means. So what does this mean to teaching math? This will be probably my last question to you guys. What does this mean to teaching math, and what are the creative ways that we can use digital media to teach math in the classroom?
Game design, fluency through games. Making it meaningful, focusing on writing this school year, looking into math and reading over the next few years. Higher level thinking through real life solutions.
Yep. My sister-in-law actually just shared with me the other day that her students actually took a field trip to Knott's Berry Farm. And she said one of the field trips, one of the sessions were to go on all the rides and learn the science behind the rides. And she said the kids were really excited about that one, mostly because they got to go on like 15 different theme park rides. But she had them write about it when they came back, and she was absolutely astounded at the vocabulary, and not just the vocabulary, but that they actually had a deep understanding of what it meant. And I thought that is what it is about, right? Taking our kids out of what they're comfortable learning, what we're comfortable learning, and exposing them to how all of these things work in real life, and then having them come back and write about it. Just a few activities, and Jenny can post these in the chat window for you. I really encourage you to visit the Idaho State Department of Education. They have deconstructed and unpacked some of those Common Core standards, so kind of look for your grade level. There's also a great language arts and math kind of scavenger hunt through the Common Core that I would encourage you to take. So Jenny's going to post those in the chat window for you as well. Some really helpful websites, if you haven't seen them already. Engage New York is phenomenal. I got a lot of the parent handouts from there too. Idaho State Department of Education has some excellent resources, and corestandards.org. The PTA website at the very bottom is really, if they have like 2-page or 4-page handouts by grade level on specific activities that parents can do with their students to help them master. So if there is one website that I would visit there, it would probably be that one, so that you can provide handouts. And I think it's just a really great way for us, again, just because we are parents, right? They're our kids, maybe not our biological children, but they are our children for the year. So it's just a different perspective on the way to look at it. And I just wanted to leave you.
Sorry, can I just ask a question real quick?
Yep.
There was a question that I'm not sure the answer to, so I'm hoping you do. When creating a quiz through the builder tools, can you, if you record your voice and create an audio file, can you upload that to your quiz?
Yeah, if you have media share, and also if you upload it if you create it on a website that has like an embed code, you can embed it right into the assignment instructions.
Thank
you.
And
if whoever that is emails me, my email is on the next slide, I will forward you to somebody who actually has some handouts on that. And that wraps it up for me today. So I just want to leave you with this last quote, and then I'm going to stop the recording. And then if people have additional questions, I'm more than happy to stay on the line and answer them. But I really want to thank you for taking the time to join us today, and I hope that we were able to kind of deconstruct and maybe calm some fears. I know that Jenny and I will be putting together a discussion guide for this webinar and archiving them. So we do have events in the box, and we will send everybody an email with information about that. So thank you again, and I'm going to log out of this screen so that I can actually see that great chat that's coming through now. I'm going to stop the recording and kind of visit your chat window.
And on behalf of everyone that's posting in there, Janita, I think that you did a phenomenal job. Lots of great resources, so everyone's saying thank you, and I would concur.
And I will say, too,